is Wednesday, June 23rd, and this week I spoke with Buddhist author Von Galt. If you are someone like me who has had some exposure to Buddhism, maybe some personal experience with Buddhism, and found that it resonated with you, but you wanted to dig a little deeper into it, you will really enjoy this conversation and Von's work. I've mentioned it before that, growing up, I remember there was always this debate about whether Buddhism was a religion or a philosophy, or is it simply rules that just help you live a better life. And oddly, the time that I spent practicing Buddhism when I was younger really did not answer that question for me. And while I walked away with some good basic practices, I didn't start to explore this higher level understanding of Buddhism until I found Von's work last year. After reading her books and getting to talk to her personally about these really advanced Buddhist practices, it makes me think that Buddhism just doesn't fit neatly into any one category and doesn't need to fit neatly into any one category. It's really about how you choose to use and interact with these teachings and practices. Von explains in the books and in our conversation that you're about to listen to about how you can actually use the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and Buddhist mandalas to change the way you experience life and to shift your reality. You can check her out on her website, merkabachakras.com, MERKABA chakras.com, and find out more about her work and her offerings there. But for now, please enjoy Buddhist author Von Galt. So it feels great, and that's why, as I started thinking about the type of people I wanted to have on the show, I
Mhm.
somehow stumbled upon your work
Mhm.
sometime last year. I can't even remember how I stumbled upon your work. Like maybe I was looking up some sacred geometry stuff because that's,
Mhm.
something that
Yeah.
I'm into. But I bought your first book, the, Buddhist Guide to Manifest Parallel Realities, and it
Oh,
it
okay.
blew it blew my mind because I had some, experiences with Buddhism. There's a Buddhist temple that's not super far
Mhm.
from where I grew up that I had been to a few times, and I hung out with a secular Buddhist group, in my early 20s. But this was so completely different from anything I had ever
This is advanced
experienced.
stuff. This is
Yes,
advanced stuff that you're not gonna get because most of the we are recording, we might as well just bring this into the
yeah,
conversation, but
sure.
yeah, we can get to that, but then you can ask me that too. Why is it so far different from what most people know of Buddhism? Why
Yeah,
is it so far
yeah.
advanced?
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's what struck me is that, you spent the time, laying the foundation, but then you went to this level that, all of the Buddhist teachers that I had spent time with over the years had never gone to. Which, you're right. I do want to back up just a bit, Vaughn, before we get into the advanced stuff. And I want to talk about first just who you are and your life. And I know you grew up with Buddhist beliefs around you, but like what did that look like for you as a child?
okay. Well, yeah, so I'm Laotian. I'm from Laos. My family is from Laos, and we immigrated to the United States in '84. So I was about maybe 3, 4 years old at the time. But anyways, in Southeast Asian culture, the philosophy is Buddhism. It's just the normal philosophy. So I was born and raised in it. I'm very used to it.
Mhm.
And my family actually supports and helps fund construction of various Buddhist monasteries and temples and their artwork to rehabilitate their artwork in these different monasteries in Laos. So I'm very, very familiar with Buddhism. However, what is different from many people who is raised in the Buddhist tradition is that instead of sitting there at temple and listening to whatever's being discussed, which is oftentimes a lot of the monks and nuns would talk about the basics of Buddhism, which many people are familiar with: mindfulness, meditation, be good to each other, the
Sure.
basic stuff that you
Yeah.
can get in almost any philosophy. Um, the basic wellness stuff. I kind of got bored of that. And so, what I typically did, because I fidget a lot and I don't sit still, is I would get up and start wandering the monastery, and I would play in the ponds with the lotus flowers and the ducks, and pick the fruit, and then I just meander, and I would study the artwork, because what is synonymous in many Buddhist monasteries and temples, just like Hindu monasteries and temples, is art, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
littered with art everywhere. And all of the art had the teachings in it, but people don't know that. And so I would
Mm.
look at the teachings and I would crack open all the old books. Nobody ever goes in, and not really interested in reading the content, but I love the beautiful artwork. And I love the artwork of Tara, the master teacher Tara, and the master teacher and Bodhisattva Kuan Yin, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have Buddha, and then you have Bodhisattva, and then you have all these teachers, and there's something similar in all of them. They all have two halos in the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
They have a halo around the head and a huge halo around their body. It's like and these halos consistently look like they vibrate,
Sure.
and sometimes they would have sacred geometry or mandalas
Mm-hmm.
patterns behind them, and then they would have fantastic sixth senses. It looked like they were from the X-Men or Avid or the Avengers or anything. So it was
Mm-hmm.
just wonderful, and I just love that. And so it's a little bit sci-fi, but I asked the monks and the nuns, because it's not a normal kid walking around sitting there studying for hours the artwork, wondering, what's this mean? And what's that mean? And what's this mean? And the student monks or nuns would say, well, that's a texture, that's their energy field. And what does the energy field do? It's going to sound fantastic, but it puts them into a different reality that matches their frequency. It's like, what does that mean? So I was asking all these questions. And so I knew all of this, but it was fantastic stories. Um,
So it sounds like the teachings that they were giving you because you were asking questions, were those similar to the teachings that, any other layperson would get by just kind of spending time in the temple?
no,
Wow. So you got firsthand, you got this higher level knowledge just because you were curious.
yes,
Wow.
yes.
Wow.
And the thing is that in many philosophies, because I've gone like growing up in America, I've gone to different religious churches with my friends and so forth, and I ask, well, why is this person walking on water? Why is this
Mhm.
person able to levitate? Well, this person has the same artwork as in the Buddhist mandalas in my temple or monastery, where they have the two halos. And what does that mean? Never got answers, but I always got
Mm.
consistent answers in any of the Laotian or Buddhist temples or Thai temples that we went to, but they never told me how they did it.
Mm. Mhm.
I knew what the images represented, and I knew the concept, but I didn't fully understand how, because they couldn't fully explain how. They just basically said, if you listen to the basic teachings, that will help you you apply the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Paths and the basic teachings, and you can apply that in your life. And when you apply it in your life, you will create your reality. It sounds simple, simple
Mm.
enough,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But um, as we find out when we grow up, we have a fantastic job of making life more difficult for ourselves.
Well, of course, we always get in our own way.
Yes. And we have a wonderful job of finding ways to create dense issues that hold down our energy field, that hold down our life force, our frequency, our prana, or whatever you want to call it, our chi. All these issues that we don't heal keep holding down our frequency. And so all Buddhism is to look at the things that happen in your life, assess it with the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, and other ways and other tools that different teachers have brought into the canon to help you assess your life, so that you learn and you grow and you heal from things that are holding down your frequency, and that you learn how to be a more conscious observer of reality and a more conscious creator of your own reality,
Mm.
in a more appropriate manner so that you create your next best experience. And by learning how to be a conscious and observant participant of the holographic reality or life that we're living in, you change your frequency and you do change your reality. You shift
Mm.
from one version of reality to another. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds simple, but then when you start doing it, you will start what people commonly say is Mandela effects. They
Yes.
will have their personal Mandela effects where people in their lives seem like different versions of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Elements in your reality are different from what you experienced and engaged with yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so those are like personal Mandela effects. Then you have the fun ones that that remind you that your consciousness is shifting from different versions of reality. Like, did Nelson Mandela die in prison, or did he become the president of South Africa and die a couple
Mm-hmm.
of years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Did was it the Berenstein or was the Berenstain Bears?
Right, right.
All of these other ones. Those are the fun ones. But the what blows people's minds most are the ones where they have their personal Mandela effects, where family history changes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's
And
just
yeah.
a light thing. And so when you understand that, then you can look at the Buddhist artwork, in which both the Buddhist mandalas books have the normal artwork that you see in all Buddhist temples and Hindu temples. Um, when you look at that and you understand, then the teachings are already there right in front of you the whole time.
Well, you know what's interesting as you're explaining all of this, and I mentioned briefly a few minutes ago that I spent some time in that one Buddhist temple that's near me, but also with secular Buddhist groups. And it almost feels like there's this natural, just metaphysical understanding that is within Buddhism that's almost been stripped away in the West. When people learn about Buddhism, in America, in the West, it's almost like it's just about meditation, it's just about clearing your mind, it's just about living a good life. It's almost removed all this beautiful metaphysical practice that you're talking about. Have you found that people are surprised to find this deep spiritual metaphysical side to Buddhism?
Yeah, it completely blows their mind because then they realize that they actually have dominion over reality.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
and re- they don't want to accept that reality is more fluid than they thought, and that a lot of it is a reflection of their own consciousness, that they are not the victim of reality but the creator of reality.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
just having, as you go further into this awakening and leveling up your frequency, ascension is just raising up your frequency, um ascending your energetic frequency. But as you go further into this experience, I mean, there really is no like quote quote enlightenment. It's just how do you want to create your reality? How do you want to experience samsara? Samsara is another word for reality, or you know this whole experience that we're having. So what trips people out mostly when they get into the advanced Buddhism is the Mandela effects,
Mhm.
is the firsthand experience, the firsthand undeniable experience that they are living in another reality from one that they previously experienced, that has a different history than they first
Mhm.
experienced, that
Can you
has
give an
different
example?
environments. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was actually in a couple hours, I was interviewed by, I did a book interview with Raised by Giants with Ryder
Mm-hmm.
Lee. And he went through the work and he was trying to figure out his Mandela effects, whereby he's been driving the same road for work for years. He knows this road on I-5 on the interstate. And one day he was going down a hill and he was with people in the car and he was thinking, there's no hill on this road. I drive this road every day for years. It's a flat road. Why are we going down a hill? Why do I, when I look to my right side where usually it's just land, do I see ocean on the same
Mm.
strip of freeway that I've been driving for years growing up? And he had this experience and it really kind of freaked him out. And then he thought about it a little bit more. And as he progressed in his drive, all of a sudden the landscape turned back to what it was previously, that he remembers it. So
Oh
he
my
had
God.
he had shifted in his drive between two different realities. Okay. I had
Wow.
another interview with two gentlemen. Uh, the name of the podcast is beside me, but it's on my YouTube channel. But anyways, one of the hosts, he read Buddhist mandalas, and he thought, well, this is an interesting twist to Buddhism. Advanced Buddhism. What's advanced Buddhism? So he read some of the books, and he is born with green eyes, and he's always had green eyes. And afterwards, as he started entering this space of awakening and ascension and getting further into understanding that he has dominion over reality and he's the creator of reality, his eyes changed to brown. And they've been that way for almost a year.
Wow. So, I feel like just the concept of parallel realities to somebody who maybe doesn't understand ascension or isn't at, the level to understand advanced Buddhism, how would you describe what a parallel reality is to that person?
Well, every moment is a parallel reality. The only thing is that's different is the consciousness in which you reside in. So the consciousness. So basically, there's two known factors in Buddhism. One, and I proved this very well using scientific information that I gathered over the last 20 years, because about 20 years ago, the Dalai Lama and many prominent monks and nuns started an initiative to work with academia to study the effects of mindfulness, meditation, etc. And from that research, and that brain and heart research, they end up finding out a lot of the metaphysical understanding is actually true, and it clarified a lot of gaps in the tradition and philosophy as well that we have lost over the last almost 2,600 years. So it was like, well, this teacher wrote this book about this, and there's some fuzziness that we don't understand about that. So all this scientific research filled in and gave us an understanding for how this all works. So basically, it's this. One, everyone is energy. That's all you are, is you're just energy. Your body, the more you go into your body and you look at your cells, it goes in more empty space. You go into your DNA, goes into more empty space. It's empty space. And
Mm-hmm.
what is holding the empty space into a form is the frequency of the energy. Okay, so everything, including your body, is energy. It's just oscillating at a certain frequency to keep that shape. That's all it is. So when
Mm-hmm.
you understand you are energy, and that energy is a sentient being that has a consciousness that is connected to everyone and to source itself, God or source or consciousness or Allah, whatever you want to call it, itself is you and everyone else. Everything in samsara, in creation, is a fractal expression of source consciousness,
Mm.
experiencing different aspects of its creations firsthand. But,
Mm.
however, it's not going to tell you what to do or how to do it, because there will be no point in you existing. So it sits there and it enjoys, and it may, you know, engage with you if you're in this path. But anyways, the basic thing is you are energy, and that's what you are. And because you are energy and you're a conscious sentient being, what does a conscious sentient being do? They want to experience something. So
Mm.
you enter into a physical realm. You have a soul, and now you have a physical realm, and you have a body, and you have this whole environment to engage with, and so forth. These are this is the reality that you're projecting and that you are creating. And because you're projecting and you're creating this reality individually and also collectively, because it's more fun to play with other people and to create with other people, um, you, however you see reality, however you see something, that is what you're creating based off of.
Mm.
Okay. And that's so simple. That's basically it. So if you see everything as being negative and hellish and this sucks and that sucks,
That's what's going to
that's
be reflected back to you.
because that's what you're creating. That's the
Yeah.
energy that you, an energy being, are sending out. And so what's being created and projecting back for you is what you're sending out. It's so
Mm.
simple.
The
Okay.
part that still kind of warps my mind, and I had to read this part in the first book over and over again, is when you're explaining when you're interacting with other people and how when your reality changes, it's like you're interacting with a different version of that person. I swear it's like every time I read this part over, I still can't understand how you could have two different people who are creating their reality but then interacting with each other, and it's like you're meeting on the same plane. I Maybe you can help me understand how that works with two
Yeah,
different people.
you're going to get the version of someone who matches your frequency. So let me give you an example to understand this. So I work with clients on their sixth senses, and oftentimes they'll come in because they're trying to make sense of their own personal Mandela effects or
Mhm.
reality shift. So I had a client who came in, and he's like, I have a different mom, and he's in his 40s. And I said, what happened? And he said, my mother is the same mother. She looks exactly the same. She's married to the same stepdad. However, the backstory is different. When
Mm.
he was in high school, he left living with his mom to go live with his father because he did not like the stepdad. He didn't want her to get married to him. Um, but she did in high school. That was 20 years ago. Um, but all of a sudden, he started working on himself, healing his issues with his
Mhm.
childhood and his mother. And as he was healing that, he didn't think anything was going on. So he let go of the box that he put his mother in and didn't think anything of it, just moved on with his life. One day he comes across his mom, just like his normal conversation with his mom. And he finds out in the conversation that his mother, he lived with his mother all through high school, and he graduated high school, and his mother didn't marry his stepdad until 5 years ago.
Mm.
So he talked to his father, and his father said, oh no, you don't know, I raised you in high school. You left your mom because she got married to so and so, and you stayed with me. And so now you have two people who have the same recollection, but the mother and the stepdad are going, we don't know what you guys are talking about. We just got married 5 years ago, and
Wow.
he lived with us. So you have people shifting realities, and you're going to get the version of people that match your frequency. The
Mm.
mom that he got in this reality did not have a lot of the anger and the
Mhm.
abuse and the fights and just the negative history that the other mom in the former reality had. And because of that, she was a higher frequency version of his mom. When he worked on his dense issues that held down his frequency, which contributed from his upbringing with his mother and father, he healed the past in the present moment that he was dealing with at the time. And by
Mm.
healing the past, he completely change his relationship moving forward. And so now he got the higher version of his mom. And he's like, "What do I do with this, Vaughn?" And I said, "It's still your mom. You still love her, right?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, now you got a chance to get to know a version of your mom that didn't suffer so much. And that's a gift.
Mm.
And
Mm.
the reason why you get to enjoy a better relationship with your mother that didn't go through as much suffering, that is much healthier, that doesn't have a lot of the bipolarness and alcoholism and so forth that your version of your mom that you previously had, is because you did the work on yourself. And
Mm.
when you did the work on yourself, um, you no longer need that energy held in your aura field, and
Mm.
so you shifted to a version of reality that was higher frequency. And what comes with a higher version of reality is a healthier mother.
Mm. Mm.
So
You
it's all
know,
about you.
Vaughn, it's funny as I started doing work with the first book, and in this first book you have that matrix of delusion worksheet, and you
Uh-huh.
have the practices. So I started doing this work myself, and I started doing shadow work as well to work
Mhm.
on certain things, and I started noticing the people around me were suddenly nicer to me,
Uh-huh.
or kinder,
Mhm.
softer, respected my boundaries without me having to really enforce them a ton. And it was almost like it happened overnight. Like
Mhm.
within a week, I noticed, like, oh, this person that I normally couldn't even sit in the same room with for 10 minutes is super nice to me. Somebody apologized to me about something that I never thought I would hear an apology before. And it was a little unsettling to me, because I got that confirmation that this work actually works. So what is your advice to people who start playing with parallel realities, start noticing these shifts and big shifts? How do you suggest that they stay grounded and stay calm as they're watching things change around them?
Well, people, I mean, people is the one that scares the most people because they're like, "Well, what happened to the other version? Is the other
Yeah.
version, what happened to the other version?" They're still getting you. They're getting the lower version of you.
Mm.
Okay? Because there's multiple versions of you as well. In Buddhist artwork, in Buddhist Mandala series, I explain very in depth that the master teachers, when they do the artwork, they always show them having like 10,000 arms and 10,000 heads, and there's
Yeah.
parallel versions going out to the ethers. And that's not because they had, for example, 10,000 heads and 10,000 arms in one body. Okay,
Mm.
that was just a 2D portrayal of a master teacher who who exists simultaneously in 10,000 different versions of reality, giving love and compassion
Wow.
to people in multiple realities into the ethers. But that was a 2D portrayal of this teaching.
Okay, you just blew my mind with that, because I've seen that artwork before, and I just assumed they were just saying, oh, this person has 1,000 arms or 1,000 heads. That is phenomenal. Phenomenal. So when did you start to really apply this work in your own life?
Well, I've always, you know, grow see when I was little, going into the Buddhist monasteries and temples with my family, um, the basics was boring. So because I didn't need to learn some of those, I already knew not to be an asshole to people.
Yeah.
Simple lesson that many people keep on learning. But
Yes.
I already knew to keep an open mind, that everybody has different struggles and to respect their journey. I already knew these basics.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But many people don't know these basics. That's why oftentimes you get the basics. They don't even get to this
Mm.
other stuff because they can't even get the basics down. You have to get the basics down so that you could understand how you create your reality and how you project reality and how you attract the next best version of reality for you to experience.
Mm.
And that's based off of your consciousness and your level of consciousness. If your level of consciousness is still on the I gotta get mine, stay
Mm-hmm.
away from me, I gotta manipulate and connive and do all these different things to protect me, or whatever the thing that your issue is, that's your level of consciousness you're at. So you're not going to go beyond that. You're going to keep getting
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm.
basic lessons over and over again, so that you
Mm.
learn to be kind to people, be respectful of people, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Mm.
all the basics. Um, so for people who like myself, who's like, okay, that's just the basic stuff. I'm bored of that. Um, then you go into you venture off into the other stuff, and very few people venture off into the other stuff. But
Mm.
when I was growing up, I didn't really create a lot of negative issues for me to work and resolve, because I forgave people. I didn't hold grudges. I kind of like, I didn't, if I didn't understand why they did something, I didn't think negatively of them. I just kind of felt sorry for them, and I wished them the very best, send them a lot
Mm-hmm.
of love, all these kind of things that everybody learns in different self-help stuff. But this is a basic. We all know this. You're not learning anything new. You're just remembering something that you already know. This is why a lot of the information is so profound, because you don't learn anything new. Nobody can teach you anything new.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
never learn anything new when it comes to consciousness. All you do is recognize what you already know.
Mm.
And
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
it's like a trigger on a tuning fork.
well, that's it. I use the word resonate a lot because, obviously the show is about people finding the spiritual path that works for them. And I think that when something rings true to you, you just feel it. And if it's a path that's going to be compatible with what you need to learn and how you will learn it, it will just feel true. And that's why I want to expose people to lots of different points of view so you can find the thing that, like you said, the tuning fork hits that note
Yeah.
within you and tells you, yep, this is truth, you can follow it.
Yeah.
So
And
so
everybody's on a different frequency. So certain messages will hit certain people more, and others it won't hit, because everybody's on a different level of consciousness. Okay. So
Mhm. Do you believe that when we, because I know obviously in Buddhism there's this idea of reincarnation. When you come into a lifetime, do you decide kind of where you're going to start, where your consciousness level is going to start when you're born?
Well, actually, in my book, Buddhist Mandalas, book one, I actually talk about the work of Dr. David R. Hawkins, and he created the map of consciousness. He was a mental health doctor in New York, a very established one, and spent all his life doing that. And then in his latter years, he created the map of consciousness, and he found very much that babies already came at a certain frequency.
Mm.
Okay, some babies already calibrate at 400. Some babies calibrate at survival of like 50. So this one's going to obviously a young soul. So everybody already has their frequency. And you can tell that when you look at children, when you look at certain children, you can tell certain children really struggle, and others, for some reason, just have a natural innate ability to communicate easier. Animals love them. They're
Mhm.
surrounded by all the dogs and cats. Where it's just peaceful. I mean, nature responds
Mhm.
naturally to the higher frequencies.
Mm. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So whatever age you are, man, female, tall, it doesn't matter. You're just energy.
Mm.
So everybody already has one. However, as you get older, um, your your frequency can go up or it can go
Mhm.
down. It's not consistent. Okay.
Mhm.
So as things in life start challenging you, things happen that sadden you, as how you respond to it, how it affects you, it does affect your frequency. So you
Mm.
may hold issues about your father or your mother, or any kind of issues that you have growing up. You may hold that in your energy field because you never um, fully transcended it, or healed it. And so these things that happen in our lives affect our frequency, and they will either lower it or keep you stagnant until you deal with those, and then you naturally go up. Your natural state is always high.
Sure. And in the Buddhist mandalas books, you create this series where in the first book you're talking primarily about sacred geometry, and in the second book you're talking primarily about Christ consciousness, but they work really well together because it keeps going back to this theme that you keep talking about energy and consciousness. So I would love to hear just in your words, because anytime I try to explain sacred geometry to somebody, I always stumble over it. What sacred geometry is, how that relates to consciousness and energy.
Right. So actually, everybody can go to a website called soundmadevisible.com, soundmadevisible.com. And I actually put it in Buddhist Mandalas 1 and 2. And you can actually, using your voice, send your voice recording to his engineering firm, and they will send you what your mandala looks like.
That's beautiful.
Okay. So you can actually see yourself in energy form. Mine has lions in it. So
really? Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that's
book
beautiful.
2 of Buddhist mandalas, I have a picture of my mandala and my husband's, and both my husband and I both have lions in our mandalas,
Oh,
like
that's
actual lions.
beautiful.
So which is kind of funny because when you think about mandalas, you think about mandalas, like the artwork that you see in all Buddhist artwork, mandalas. But those mandalas are teachers.
Wow.
Those mandalas are the energy field of different people. Okay. And teachers typically have a lion in it. So anyways, amongst other things. But that's basically what it is that's energy is basically you, and sacred geometry is basically a mandala. That's basically
So
it.
the patterns and shapes that make up everything, essentially.
Yeah, because everything is made of the same sacred geometry form. Because everything is energy. And if you're energy, what are you really doing with reality? You're creating it.
Yeah, one thing that I loved about the first book is how you went through each and every one of the major symbols, some that I hadn't seen before, some that I was familiar with but didn't know the significance of, and connected how they keep coming back to the same just thread of energy and consciousness. And
Mhm.
and the one that surprised me is you went into the yin yang symbol.
Mhm.
I never thought of that as being connected to sacred geometry.
Well, yeah, because sacred geometry, because everybody is, and they proved this scientifically with somatics research that um, if you look at like the Buddhist mandala artwork, okay, if you do a vocal DNA, it comes out, it looks like a mandala. But in ancient Buddhist and Hindu artwork of mandalas, it's always two-dimensional because, it's a flat um, art art diagram. But what they proven in science is that sound is actually a bubble. So everybody is a bubble. But if you look at the pattern of energy of how it moves in this energetic bubble, your aura field, your bubble, if you look at it, it looks like a mandala because that's the energy that's moving around in certain consistent patterns that look like sacred geometry. But if you look at the bubble from the top, because remember, you have the way in which the energy flows, it flows like a figure eight, crisscrossing against each other. And if you look at the flow of that energy from the top view, if you're looking at the three-dimensional version of your energy field as a bubble, the flow is a yin yang.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay. Wow.
So all the teachings are in the artwork. They're not teaching you anything new. It's just people weren't ready for understanding it yet because they can't get over how not to be an asshole to each other.
Right.
Which we
Well,
still do today. We still
we
do today. America
we
is so polarized right now. So
100%, 100%. And I think that's why it's so funny to me how if you look at every single religion in the world, every single major religion, you can have different stories. I've said this a million times. You can have different stories, different cultural things, but underneath all of that, there's really it's usually the same lessons over and over again about like
uh-huh.
don't be mean to each other, don't steal, don't lie, don't kill each other for no reason. It's usually the same things, but
Yeah, it's
for
basic lessons on how not to be living in low consciousness. Those are
exactly.
all symptoms of somebody who has a low consciousness level.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Somebody who has a higher consciousness level and an understanding of the higher reality, and I make these points in the books, is if you understand that you are an aspect of source itself living inside you and everybody else, and everybody's connected, and that upon your your death, you're going to have a life review of everything that you ever experienced, not judgment, a life review of everything you ever experienced from your vantage point, from the vantage point of somebody else that you affected, from their vantage point, all the way down the line to everybody that they affected. You have the perspective and the firsthand experience of everybody that was affected by how you treated them. You would not be an asshole to people.
Mm. Mhm.
Okay.
So, why do you think that we come into this life not remembering, for I guess for most of us, not remembering our past lives and not remembering our past life reviews and kind of having to relearn some of those lessons?
Well, I would say I think this is a master class.
Mm.
Okay, because there are other, and if you do hypnosis, or even if you do hypnosis, just meditation,
Mhm.
um because it accesses the same brain waves, the same levels of consciousness. But um if you do any of that hypnosis, meditation, yoga, anything that gets you into the to that state of consciousness where you basically become not yourself. You connect to source. You don't have an identity anymore. That's the level in
Mhm.
which you're connecting to source. The source light, which is in Buddhism, they call it Christ, which is another word for crystalline consciousness, the light
Mhm.
consciousness of light. Crystalline being a fifth dimensional and higher consciousness in your energy field, in that sacred geometry mandala that is you. So, anyways, so when you understand that, um, then you understand at a higher level how you create your reality. You understand why certain things are manifesting your reality because you had thought certain ways and believed certain ways and acted certain ways, and that's what you're getting. But if
Mhm.
you don't see those, if you don't see the negative view about something or somebody, and you have a greater understanding of it. Let's say you use the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path to get a greater understanding from all sides. You can't be angry at somebody for being ignorant.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
The only sin that humans ever do is ignorance. That's it. Everything else is just life lessons and experiences that we're creating for our own evolution, for own entertainment, all that, all of that. But
Mhm.
it is the ignorance that is the only thing that we do wrong, and that ignorance is because we're not applying and every seeing the situation from all perspectives to understand how this experience got created.
Mm. So I know you started talking about quantum hypnosis, and I know that in your personal practice you do that with some of your clients,
Mm,
and through that people are able to kind of access memories that we don't normally access in our day-to-day lives, like past lives or maybe parallel lives.
right.
So when people access that kind of information through a hypnosis session, how do you see them transform as a result of that? Does that kind of help them leap forward in their understanding of how to navigate this life? Do they remember things that give them, a better understanding of things they were trying to conquer in this life? How do you see people kind of transform through that?
Yeah. So I've been using different meditation and hypnosis scripts, but I pretty much have settled on two common ones that many people recognize, and that's QHHT and BQH. And one is for in person and one is for online. Most of my hypnosis clients are online because they're from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
but I often do sixth sense consultations, and those are all over the world as well. But for the ones that want to do hypnosis, basically what happens is oftentimes there is revealed a couple lifetimes that are relevant to them right now. And then I talk to the oversoul or source itself about this person's experience, and I ask all the questions that they want to know. So so nothing is removed, it is
Mm-hmm.
unanswered. And oftentimes when and if they have family members that that are deceased, and they want to, or even alive, and they want to speak to the higher self of that family
Mm-hmm.
member, they can still speak to that person. And what comes through is that person's consciousness. Their body becomes a conduit, and that person's consciousness comes through and speaks to them, and they feel like if they want to speak to the grandma, they feel the grandma's presence come through.
Mm.
It's her mannerism, it's her voice. They completely, and I have all these many of these recordings on my YouTube channel, Merkaba Chakras, on YouTube, and you can go to the playlist for hypnosis and listen how people's voices changes, the tone changes when we bring forward different deceased loved ones, and when we bring forward source. Sometimes some people have had previous lifetimes beyond earth where they were quote quote aliens from
Mm.
different lifetimes, or they lived in higher dimensions and they're coming here for basically the ascension of earth into a higher frequency. And you can hear the conversations that I have with them. And
Mm.
even sometimes I'll speak to the alien collective that is monitoring the progress of the person who is part of their society but decided to incarnate, um, to kind of help raise consciousness. I'll speak to them and they'll learn something as
Mm.
well,
Mm.
about basically about forgiveness and acceptance. So
Mm.
it's really interesting. But what happens for the person is when they go through and they feel the pain of somebody else that they had previously resented,
Mm-hmm.
then they understand.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
like maybe they hated their dad all their life. Um, but then they went through and they talked to the dad and they felt why he was so angry, why he was so heartbroken, why he was so stressed out, and what the elements that contributed to that. Then they don't no longer have hatred or anger. They have empathy
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness.
Mm. That's beautiful. That's
Hmm.
really beautiful. So I guess that brings me to this next thought about this process of understanding. I know you gave some comments earlier about kind of the misconceptions around enlightenment, but is there an end game with ascension? What happens when you get to a point where your vibration is essentially as high as it can go? Do you not reincarnate? Do you go back to source? Do you believe in something that would be equivalent to a heaven? Do you just kind of go into oblivion? Is it nirvana? Like, what does that look like?
Okay, so I explained this quite extensively in the Buddhist Mandalas books, but basically, there is no end because you don't stop existing.
Mm.
All right? There is no end. Like when you get to your destination, guess what? You do something else.
Mm.
Okay? When you stop and go on vacation, okay, you go on vacation for infinity. Let's say you go into nirvana and get reabsorbed with consciousness, you release your identity that you've created for yourself as part of these different experiences. You release that and you get reabsorbed with consciousness, and so now You are consciousness, and that's all you are. There's nothing else. You're in that bliss of nirvana, which is what some people call Buddhist heaven. It's kind of like a state of emptiness. They call it spiritual emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
It's the place where everything comes out of and goes back into. And so everything that comes out of that space of emptiness, kind of like if you want to understand nirvana, it's kind of like a blue screen on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a blue screen. And now with that blue screen, if let's say you wanted to start having an experience, your energy being going, I kind of want to have an experience. I've been cocooned for infinity and I want to have an experience. I want to go to Earth during the ascension. That sounds really good. Okay, let's do that. Or whatever. Whatever reality you want to go to. As a soul, then that blue screen starts filling up with the codes for what you want to experience. So at that point you would go to the spirit world and you would pre-plan your incarnation. And in Buddhism they always say have a good sojourn. How's your sojourn? And sojourn just means journey, excursion. Another way to say it is vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're having a vacation, okay? Or you're having an excursion, you're having a trip. Okay, there's a beginning and there's an end to that trip. These are different lifetimes or an experience. It's kind of like if you go into a video game, you picked up the video game that you want to play in. And maybe you want to learn some life lessons so that you can evolve as well. Because if you're a soul and your energy and nothing is really, really real for the most part, how do you get satisfaction?
Mm.
You growth. It's not like you can feed your soul a cheeseburger and it's going to be happy. All right, here's the cheeseburger. Here's a lot of sex. It's going to be happy afterwards.
Right.
That's just the bodily stuff. You're still kind of like, but it is growth. It is when you achieve a goal and you feel so good that you achieve that goal.
Mm.
And those are the moments. It is when you have a life experience and you feel so much love for your child when they accomplish something or when they're born and stuff, and you're like, oh, it's just a feeling of unconditional love. Those feelings are what your
Mm.
energy wants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why nothing physical will really satisfy you.
Right. I mean, and I think that again, every religion talks about this at one point. And even,
Hmm.
in the secular world, I think we talk about this too, that
Yeah.
yeah, drugs and rock and roll are great for a while until you realize they don't fill that hole
Yeah.
that void that you're trying to fill, which comes from, a higher fulfillment. Um, so what is your thoughts? I'm deviating a little bit with this,
Yeah.
but what are your thoughts about the idea of a soul purpose or a soul mission or a life path that some people feel okay, they come into this lifetime or they come to earth to fulfill a specific thing that their soul wants to do in this lifetime?
Yeah, yeah. So, the thing is that you don't have Earth is not the only place in town, just so
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
You don't have to keep coming back. You can go to other places. You can go into higher dimensions. You can go to other planets. There's a lot in Samsara in the game board that you have no clue about.
Mhm.
However, a lot of people come back for their families.
Mm.
A lot of people come back to help their families raise their consciousness. Everybody has that
Mm.
that person that they really have a lot of endearment for in their family or friends, but they struggle a little bit. You know, sometimes people come back just to kind of be their best friend or be their spouse and kind of just help them out. We just love each other, so we just decided to do another go around. Sure, I'll
Mm.
do that circus ride one more time with you.
So it's almost like we're like intergalactic soul friends of some
Uh-huh.
sort, and we keep running into each other because we like hanging out for,
Yeah. How
a
many people
100
have you
years
met?
or
We're like, yeah,
so.
it's like I know you forever.
I've run into people before that you become instant friends with, or you work with somebody and it's like you have this instant bond and it's like,
Uh-huh.
have I known you at some
Yeah.
point before?
Uh-huh. Do you think
Yeah.
that out of 8 billion people, you're probably only gonna engage with maybe like a dozen or 2 dozen at a time? Do you think that's a
Mm,
coincidence?
so you keep coming back with the same people.
Uh-huh. That's what they call soul groups. Uh-huh.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So do you feel like with your life and or the life that you're living right now as Vaughn, and the people that you've interacted with so far in this lifetime, do you feel like you have a specific purpose in these people's lives?
Well, the purpose is always to, in short, your sojourn in Buddhism is the purpose is to have a good experience. Just
Mm,
enjoy the trip that you're on. However, to also enjoy it, you kind of want to put a little bit of some courses in there so you learn and you grow because that's fun too. A
mhm,
little challenges, some challenges a little bit, so it's so you have a if it's not too much challenging, it's boring. So a little bit of challenge, um, and the purpose for the most part is just basically to enjoy your existence and have fun and grow,
mm,
and while you're living your best version of yourself, you're getting the best version of reality and of people, and you are raising other people's consciousness by being who you are and being the best version of who you are because all we're doing is looking at each other going, "Ooh, I like that outfit. I think I'll buy that one for myself too." I didn't
mm,
I I saw what happened when you made that decision. I'm not doing that either. So all we're doing is
yeah.
looking at each other going, "What are you doing? Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I like that. I'm gonna try that in my life."
Wow. Wow. It's funny when you explain it that way, because that's what I loved about these three books is that, I keep going back to them and rereading them because there's so much information in them. And it's honestly such a deal, the amount of information and research that you put into these books. But when you boil it down to that, it just warms my heart that it really is just this beautiful game that we get to play with one another and we have control of how we experience it. And the fact that, that added layer of, yeah, we're coming back to enjoy it with these other people in our soul groups that we kind of cherish makes it even more special to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So in the last book, the book that you just released, the Buddhist Mandalas to Christ Consciousness of a Multidimensional Merkaba. So you mentioned earlier about the word Christ, and I love that in this book you went very early on, you made the distinction between Christ in the way Christianity means by the word Christ and what Christ consciousness is. And then you go into energy healing, and I had never heard this connection about what Christ consciousness is and how that connects to energy healing. So, just in a few words, if you want to encapsulate what Christ consciousness is, like what does that mean to you?
Okay, so in short, the word Christ is in Buddhism is just another word for light. Okay,
Mm,
this distinction between Christ as the person that the Roman Catholic Church has given to Yeshua ben Yosef, and Christ as a word for light. Um, the word Christ is just means it's another translation for crystalline consciousness. And crystalline is actually from the derivative word of crystalla, which has 7 sacred geometry tones in it, which is ka, ra, sa, la. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's a couple more, but I can't remember it. But there's 7 sacred tones of sacred geometry in your consciousness, in that level of consciousness.
mhm,
And those tones are what creates your Merkaba. When
mhm,
Mer means light and Ka means spirit and Ba means body. So
mhm,
it is your spirit's light body. Hence,
mm,
it is your aura field, it is your mandala, it's your sacred geometry, it's your orb, it's however many names you want to put, it's your Sri Yantra, it's your yin yang.
mhm,
You
mm,
are energy. Even the word studying the word Christ consciousness goes back to remind you that you are energy, and you as an energy being of consciousness connected to source as you have dominion over how you create your holographic reality that
Mm-hmm.
matches your frequency and takes you to the matching parallel reality.
Mm.
It goes back
Mm.
to it. And I go in so many ways. You go back to the concept that you are energy and you have dominion. It just goes back to it. So that's basically what it is. And if you're familiar with solfeggio hertz frequency,
Yep.
okay, so some of the sacred tones are ut, which in hertz frequency is 396, fa is 639, re is 417, and then there's other ones. But in Buddhism, also they use the same tones in the Om Mani Padme Hum.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and those tones when they sing or when they chant Om Mani Padme Hum basically are solfeggio frequencies that tune your energy field to a healthy state.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, there's so many different ways to understand the crystalline consciousness of the Christ light that is you. But the more you stay in those lower energies of consciousness of being a butthead to everybody and to yourself, you are depriving yourself of these higher energies in these
Mm.
higher energy fields that are good for your mandala, for your Merkaba. And there's even higher ones too, but get the basics so you can get to at least five, five being
Right.
above. But anyways, when you get to that crystalline consciousness that has all the basic ones in your aura field, you resonate at the base level of where consciousness is already at. And that healthy energy field heals. Nature responds to the Christ consciousness within the being. So
Mm.
that person, the animals are happier, and the trees are greener, things just flow easier. People are not as angry, people are healthier, you are healthier. I mean, it goes on and on. It's your energy field that heals your environment.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm. So, it's funny. I've talked to so many people about, how to just keep your energy field clear. And they've told me, okay, play binaural beats in your home, or you can use sage, or, make sure you do salt here. So for you, in just your day to day, do you have a personal practice to just kind of keep your energy in a certain state, or do you feel like you don't even need to do that
Well,
because
yeah.
it's just a part of your how you live your life?
Well, see, all of those are just you heard the concept permission slips, like, you have a hall pass as a permission to
Yes.
walk down the hallway, you know?
Yes.
Eventually you don't have to ask permission,
Mhm.
or you have self-responsibility. You just go and come back.
Mhm.
You don't need those permission slips. But all of those different things are just methods to kind of help people get into a calming state of consciousness, to get into those higher states of consciousness. Even hypnosis, meditation, yoga, all these other things that will get you to connect with Christ consciousness, with source consciousness, where the ego identity is gone, and then you get to the
Mhm.
higher frequencies that heal. And I've in book 2 of Buddhist Mandalas, there's a lot on energy healing, because energy healing scientifically have proven that when people get into the state of energy healing, when they reach that level of Christ consciousness, where there's no identity anymore. They're connecting to source. That's the energy healing level, and it is
Mm.
source that does the healing, not
Mm. So
the
you're just
person.
connecting to source, is what you were saying,
That's
is that
it.
you're being a conduit, I believe that's the word you used,
Yep.
to Christ consciousness. That's
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Wow.
Christ consciousness is source.
Mm.
It's in
Mm.
you, but because you're stuck in your ego identity, you haven't gone to that part yet. But when you get, but ego is not a bad thing. Ego is allows you that polarity in your consciousness, so you can mirror back and forth, like, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do that? Because you need that polarity, okay, to
Mm-hmm.
reflect back to you your next best decision that you want to make. But
Mm-hmm.
when you get into energy healing, all energy healing is, and it's a very simple thing to do, is to just basically get into that state of spiritual emptiness, of nothingness, where you don't have an identity. You've just basically cleared your mind, and now everything is connected. And since everything is connected and everything is connected to the crystalline light of source, if the other person is, if you're not in pain and the other person not in pain, and you guys are the same being, and then who's in pain?
Mm. Mm.
That's all it is. It's just recognizing your unity and your oneness. Now, I want a caveat. Some people have life lessons that they plan for themselves to experience as part of
Mm.
their journey.
Sure.
So, um, they, they, if you are going to be impaired by some kind of injury, because that is part of how you plan to experience your next best experience, then that's going to still happen. You're still going to
Mm.
go through that. So you can't
Mm-hmm.
avoid some accidents if it's part
Right.
of your pre-life plan.
If that's something you decided I want to experience what it would be like to go through X, Y, or Z, that's just no energy healing can impede that because that's
Yeah.
something you decided.
Yeah. Like
Mm.
if you meant to go through heartbreak from a really abusive relationship so that you can learn to appreciate the spouse that you find next, you're going to go through that because it's what you plan that you need to go through so that you have the building blocks for a healthy relationship and
Mm.
what that means to you. However, you can learn the lesson quicker and reduce your suffering. You don't have to go so far deep into the hole
Mm.
of the domestic violence to learn that lesson. That's the
Mm.
caveat.
So
To suffer less.
what's your understanding or your viewpoint on karma?
There is no karma. Karma is just unbalanced energy.
Mm.
Remember, we keep going back. You're energy. That's all you are. And
Mm.
unbalanced energy is basically unbalanced perspectives.
Mm.
Okay. So, like, let's take the example of somebody who is in an abusive relationship and they keep on going into the same type of relationship with different people. They have an unbalanced perspective on what a relationship is supposed to look like. So, they need to sit down and they can use the Matrix of Delusion worksheet to use the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path, which is really well outlined in Buddhist Guide to Manifest Parallel Realities in that book. But basically, they can go through and dissect, where did I learn that this was the type of relationship that I
Mm.
wanted to attract for myself, and go back to childhood. You learned it from your parents. And so
Mm.
you just replaying in your adult life the marriage that you learned. So now you know where that dense issue is. You have to unlearn that, forgive it, let it go, and now learn to build a brand new template for what kind of relationship you want to be in and you're going to be happy in. And some
Mm.
people, when they do that, that exercise, they don't know how to be happy. They don't know how to build new templates. They're like, this
Sure.
relationship is boring and this guy's too nice. I can't handle niceness. I need a
Mm-hmm.
little like beat me up. And if that's what some people want, then obviously that's like not everybody's going to have the same want. So if that's what you
Sure.
want, a little edge in your relationship, then obviously that's what you're going to create. But at least you know how you create it.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The energy, the consciousness of the being becomes more aware of how they create their reality.
Sure.
Okay. Because of all the factors that have fed into their consciousness.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you hear people say all the time, and I think this is kind of a throwaway thing that people say that, oh, yeah, the universe will keep sending you the same person, the same relationship, the same bad job until you learn whatever lesson you need to learn. But I think what's really beautiful about your books and your work is it actually shows you how to get out of that pattern. Whereas, normally we're just bouncing around saying, why do I keep getting the same crappy boss? Why do I keep dating the same, crappy guy or crappy girl? Well,
Mm.
if you use this work and use the matrix, and actually apply the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path in the correct way, you can actually raise your vibration and get off of that timeline or
Uh-huh.
that reality that you don't want to experience anymore.
Yeah, because you know what what you've become conscious of how you created your reality.
Mm.
Okay? And the
Mm-hmm.
definition of a Buddha, because all of us are Buddhas, we just not completely tune into it. It's a Sanskrit word, Budh. It's a
Mm-hmm.
Sanskrit word in India, and it means Bud means to awake within the matrix, the holographic matrix that we project and we create within your consciousness.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
Do we all wake up? Does everybody wake up one day? Surely.
You know, not always in this life, but some people just want to know the experience of being unconscious
Mm.
their whole life. Because they
Mm.
want to, go back to the spirit world and look at like, oh, what was it like to be completely unconscious the whole time? To be completely like a bumbling, you know, drunk
Mm.
idiot all day, every day, not knowing how you stumble into this and that.
Sure.
And some people, you know those people who are like, God, it's the grace of God. Something came
Yes.
through.
Right,
And they're
right,
like,
right.
I don't know how I'm gonna pay my bill. Oh my God, something came through. I don't know how I
Mm-hmm.
found you. Oh my how did you and you're always like, how do you always land?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like the biggest mess.
Right.
And you know what they're always doing? Some of those people,
Mm.
they're always thankful. They wanted to spend their life finding out if I steered unconsciously and things always somehow saved me or worked or something worked out for me, I'm always grateful. I'm always thankful. And maybe that soul wanted to know what it felt like to constantly be grateful and thankful for everything in their life.
Mm.
But like not
Mm.
just on a conceptual basis, but literally be that way. Oh, thank God I got my next food. Thank God somebody called me back. Thank God my car broke down and somebody came by the side. How many I
Yeah.
know somebody like that. It's a walking mess, but she
Yeah.
is the most grateful and thankful person I have ever met because things always go wrong and things always go right afterwards. And she falls into all the time something is going to come through to help her
Mm.
out, and she doesn't know how because she's the biggest mess.
Mm. So it almost sounds like, just this is like a dot that I'm connecting now, two dots I'm connecting, that if you look at the patterns that have appeared in your life before you decided to consciously take control of your reality, you could probably point to lessons that you wanted to learn in this lifetime.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Like I said from the very beginning, you're going through a sojourn.
Mm.
Okay, you're going through an excursion, a trip, um, and you plan a little bit of challenges for you, so it's not too boring, so that you can you know learn something and grow. Because growth is what the spirit likes.
Mm.
Okay, so you plan a couple of that, and it is those moments where you triumph that you really really go. This whole life thing is not that bad.
Mm. Mhm. Vaughn, I feel like in these three books that you've released, you've put out such gems. You've given so much to people who want to take charge of their reality. But I have this feeling like you still have more to say.
Oh yeah, I have book 3 of the Trinity. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm I'm going to wait probably like a year maybe or a year and a half. When I'm ready, I'm gonna do the third one. I kind of have an idea to kind of how to close out the whole thing.
Mm.
Um, but I'm going to wait and see how this COVID endemic saga of humanity goes because it's
Mm.
I'm going to work it into this into the closing of this book series because it is one of humanity's life lessons.
Mm.
Um, and it is a big life lesson about compassion and unconditional love.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because there's a lot of suffering that is
Mm.
coming out of this. And it's a big history lesson as well. So I want to
Mm.
kind of have that worked into the last book of Buddhist mandalas. And so that not only do you know that you are energy and you are creating your reality, but you also, um, once you recognize that you are the creator and you have dominion, and you all do, and you learn how to create reality much more cohesively, responsibly, instead of being basically a drunk person, drunk driving through life. That's what we're doing. Everybody's basically drunk driving through life, creating things unconsciously,
Mm.
like a drunk person. So,
Mm-hmm.
so anyways, but that's an experience as well. But anyways, but the whole close of the whole thing is, now that you know all of it, what do you want to experience?
Mm.
How do
Mm.
you want to create? Because
Mm.
you're gonna still exist.
Wow. So this is like a master class in creating your perfect reality.
Yeah, and there's no such thing as perfect. Everybody likes a little bit of thorns in their rose.
That's true. I guess perfect would be a little boring, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if people want to work with you closely, or have a hypnosis session, or one of those sixth sense sessions, or other type of offerings, how can they find you, and what do you offer?
Right. So the hypnosis, I don't really do. I do the hypnosis if people want to, if people want to do that. But for the most part, I do sixth sense consultations, because a lot of people, they get the books and they're like, okay, I get it. I'm working on it. Or, they may do a hypnosis and they, you know, talk to deceased loved ones that they want to talk to source, whatever. But then they start getting, when you do this work on yourself and you have no issues that come up in how you create reality, you're going to create more abundance, you're going to create higher versions of reality and experiences for yourself. So when you're a higher frequency, you also activate six senses, and not just one, two, or five. They keep on coming. And so it can be a little bit it can be a little bit jarring when your sixth senses start coming through. And I have clients that I consult with on a monthly and quarterly basis on their sixth senses. So, like I'll give you an example of one I just did. I had a client. She has always done awakening ascension work, but then she started getting into my stuff, and it threw her into a whole nother level. And so then she started seeing the auras of everybody, every animal, every tree, every computer. It was almost like a psychedelic trip all the time. She couldn't turn it off. It was just
Oh my
crazy.
gosh. Wow.
And so we had a conversation. I gave her some pointers, and then okay, it's simmered. So now she can only see auras when she wants to. So
Mm.
so now she can function and go to college and do her thing. So now she can see auras. And so then the next follow-up, I say, okay, when you see auras, what do you see in people? And she said, I see this gray area. I'm like, okay, pull that spot of energy out. And that happens to be a tension in their body. They're like, how'd you know I had a pain in that part? It's like you were doing clearing work on people unconsciously. And you don't have to necessarily always tell them, just kind of walk by, and or if they say that, like, oh, you want to get rid of that, however you want to do it. But you can just project it and just clear it. And so now she's working on practicing. When she sees somebody in her family or friends or her or pets who are in pain, she just basically clears the dark energy that is the pain in their body. So she becomes a healing force. And she gets to a point where she walks around, basically just heals everything around her.
Wow.
Anybody who has a dark spot in their aura, she just heals them. Just
Oh my
walks around. She
gosh.
becomes a walking healing beacon. And that was her thing. And then we just continue building on top of that. But now she wants to move to the Midwest with her boyfriend, because they live in California. And I guess everybody's moving out of California for various reasons. And for and they work online, so for much cheaper, they're going to get like a small little ranch and do a healing retreat,
Mm.
so that she can teach others how to do healing, how to, do different things. And then they could do a little bed and breakfast, and she could still do her work. So it's coming along, but basically that's what, and my podcast is all about energy healing and healing because that is what is going to be needed in the
Mm,
near future. Is a lot of healing
mm,
centers and people connected to Christ consciousness
mm.
in these
And
higher dimensions.
where can people find your
And
podcast?
yes, so they can find all of that. They can request a sixth sense consultation if their sixth senses are going wacko on them. Um, and they can request an online hypnosis or in-person hypnosis session with me as well, and find my links to my books and the links to the podcast all on my website, which is merkabachakras.com. So that's MERKABA chakras, like your seven chakras.com. And all that is there in one spot.
Beautiful, beautiful. Vaughn, I feel like I could talk to you all day, and I feel like I'm about to probably go through my next reread of all of these books very soon because I want to revisit this information so badly and continue just shifting my reality. It's been amazing doing this work.
Oh, good, good. Well, you're I love to hear from people who read the material because the interviews are so much more interesting because I'm like, well, what are you getting in your Mandela effects? Are you getting any six senses yet?
Mhm.
So at first it's just curiosity. They're like, oh, let me just see what this advanced Buddhism stuff is all about. I've
Mhm.
been doing this for a long time. I know the stuff. So they try it and they read it, and then I always preface, if you start going to my work, it will rewire your consciousness.
Mhm.
Like it
Mhm.
literally will rewire. You cannot unsee, unread, and unfeel certain things.
Oh,
It
100%.
it's like a tuning fork. It will just tune you. Every
Yep.
chapter, it will just tune you. And when you're done, you are going to be rewired. Your consciousness will be rewired, and your frequency will change. And you're going to want to start doing the stuff to let go of the old frequencies and get to the higher stuff and have a more fun experience in this incarnation that you're in. So I always preface that. So if you like the way things are now, don't read the books. But if you're curious to see how good it can get, read the books.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you're going to be talking to other people like, what was your personal Mandela effects? What kind of reality shifts? What happened to you? It's gonna be wild. Like, what's your sixth sense? Here's my sixth sense.
Yeah.
How'd you fix that sixth sense? What'd you do to work on that sixth sense? Oh, okay. I had this weird experience where I talked to like aliens and they were telling me about this. Well, I talked to this, and so it gets a little fantastical. But you know what? That's next level.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't I want a life that has fantastical things happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I want to hear everybody's I get people's emails and stuff, and I want to hear your fantastical things. I want to hear that you're finding portals. I want to
Mhm,
hear that wherever you go, flowers bloom in the
mhm,
grass. I want to hear all of these, you know, unbelievable things that are happening to you because they're normal. That's
mhm,
what's normal. The other
mhm,
normal is not normal.
mm. And yet we're taught that life in a way, I feel like our society teaches us that life needs to be a little boring or a little hard or a little bit of suffering, or a lot of suffering or a lot hard.
Yeah, that's the 3D reality.
Yeah,
That's for low consciousness. And you
yeah.
keep playing like that, you're gonna stay in those low consciousness experiences.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
not everybody needs that. And if you're ready to go to what is life in a higher consciousness and what is a higher consciousness being create and project and what is it like is much more fantastical. There's a lot of synchronicity and the spirit world plays and hangs out with you a lot more. And it comes normal.
mm.
It literally my husband's like, I don't know what happens, but whatever it's I just not surprised anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, I think the first time things started to shift for me, I was a little unsettled, and then after a while, I said, "Hey, this is actually kind of fun."
yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. And there's
Uh,
gonna be times that, you're really gonna feel like your life like, I don't know, but that's
mm,
but that's the challenges.
yep, yep.
So,
Yeah.
But
I really appreciate your work, Vaughn. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and my listeners, about this work and the way that we can shift our realities and how we
mhm.
can use these Buddhist principles at an advanced level to create our new worlds for ourselves. So I
Yeah.
just thank you so much. And I wish you luck on this next book, and I cannot wait to read it.
Oh, thank you. It's gonna be a little while. I'm gonna probably give it like a year and kind of sit on it for a little bit. Because once I'm done, then I'm gonna start my other project I tabled, which is following Buddhist folklores of Lemuria.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so
Yeah.
you have
So
two projects planned. Awesome.
yeah, I have the other ones. That one I started many years ago, and I had tabled just to finish the Buddhist mandalas one. But that one is basically Buddhist folklore archaeology.
Mm,
So it'll be fun.
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I can't wait. And in the meantime, I'm just going to have to dig back into these books once again.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me, and blessings to everybody. And just really quick, what the source, I always have a message that source says to everybody in all
Sure.
my sessions. So I
Please do.
put it in these words. And here's the last message from source. Um, you've always been enough. Use the gifts and resources all around you to create a life you want to experience. A life full of joy and love. The spirit world will nudge you through synchronicity. You can do it.
Mm, thank you for that. That was beautiful.
Well, thanks so much and blessings.
Bless you. Thank you, Vaughn. Take care.
Bye bye.